Reuben Most, 80 Jahre jung. Reuben Most, wem es 80-jähriger Gebirgstug der Allewoder jüdische Kultur wird feiern Schabbos bei Tug den 14. Mai im Jahr Titel der Spolle in dieser Weg kein Brisk sich lernens Tollerei. Dort ist gleich hereingezogen geworden in der Arbeiterkreislauf, wie hat fleißig gelernt die verbotene Literatur. In 1905 ist schon gewesen ein Mitglied im Bund. In demselben Jahr hereingeworfen geworden in der zarischen Türme für ihm legale Aktivitäten. New York ist Reuben gekommen in 1906. Euch du hat sich gleich gefunden und ungeschlossen in der Sozialistischen Partei, in der Carpenters Union, in den Arbeiterring. Unser Jubilar hat nicht gekannt vertrugen den großstädtischen UH in ein Werk in der weiter West. In 1910 befindet sich schon in Los Angeles, wie hat gemacht sein Aim. Du ist ruhig aktiv in der sozialistischen Bewegung und wird beeinflusst von der Bewegung zurück zu der Natur, was macht ihn für ein Vegetarianer bis einzigen Tag. Ist gewesen aktiv in die kooperative Bewegung in Los Angeles, aufbauen radikale Kindercamps und Schulen, was wird geräudet von der Reaktion und vermacht. Reuben Most ist einer von den Gründern von dem gewesenen Ordenbranch 41. Später von Hollywood Jiddischen Kulturclub. Ist aktiv euch in anderen Gebieten, hereingerechnet von Sanitarium, für Tuberkulosis. Ist mit der Morgenfreiheit sind ihr ersten Tag. Inzwischen ihre getreiste Stützer. Reuben hat erreichen Interesse in die jüdische progressive Kulturwerten, wo er stützt mit der breiten Hand. Sein Gebirgstug ist unser allemens größer Jonte. That's it. All right. I was born in 1886 in April the 15th. My father was the only son and my mother was the only daughter. They had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. When I was a year old, my father died. And my mother remained with 4 children without any means of support. So she had to go out and make a living. She opened up a little grocery store, and that was not very successful. Then she went into another business. She leased gardens and orchards from the farmer owners and kept it till the fruits and the vegetables ripened, and then they sold it to the stores. She that way made a living for her children. And so it passed by some time for about 8 years, and my brother and sisters have gone to work at various trades at our early youth. When I was 8 years old, I also went to work, so we all helped to support mother and ourselves. I was about 13 years where I went to a bigger city of Brest-Litovsk, and I began to learning the trade of carpenter work. I came into a shop where there was about 6 workers, and they all belonged to a union, and they also belonged to the revolutionary party called the Bund, and I began to learn the trade, but the owner of the shop was very mean to me, and he did not intend to learn me anything except take care of his children and take care of the house. That did not very agree with me, and I wanted to leave the shop, and the man in the shop stood up for me and asked me to stay, and they will see that I learned the trade. So from then on, I began to learn how to make things. Very soon, they saw that I'm a very useful boy, and they took me into the revolutionary movement. They assigned me to a revolutionary group where I began to learn Marxism and the class struggle and so forth. I took that very seriously, and pretty soon I've been a full-fledged revolutionary. I began to distribute illegal literature all over the city. And before very long, the police caught me and put me in jail. I was in jail for about 2 months, and then they sent me back to the little town of Terespol where I was born. That was about as far as from Los Angeles to Pasadena. And I used to go there every Sunday morning to work and come back Friday evening. During the 2 days of Friday and Saturday, I've called together all the young boys and girls of about 15, 16 years of age, and we have organized a group, a revolutionary group, and so we used to have meetings every weekend. And I began to learn how to be a speaker, and I explained them all about the class struggle and all about Marxism and all about how we can throw over the Russian Tsar government and so forth. And they were very much interested in it. And so until the first revolution came in 1905. At that time, I was a full-fledged revolutionist, and I was thrown into jail about a month before the revolution broke out, and they opened the gates from the jails, and they left me out with a number of other political prisoners. At that time, I remember there was a tremendous demonstration by the prison, and also walking towards the middle of the town where there was a plaza, and there was a very big demonstration. We demonstrated till very late at night. We then went to sleep. So the revolution continued for several months. Then I've decided to take a trip and on the way from Brest-Litovsk to Kiev. And on the way I would stop in every small town and organize self-defense groups against pogroms, as the pogroms then began, and they were having pogroms all over the country. So it took me about 2 months to come to Kiev. At that time, I must have visited about 20 towns. We used to have meetings in the woods, meetings in the synagogues, and meetings in private homes. And everywhere, I stayed about a week or so. During that week, I would have to support myself, and the group of that city would find me a job in a cabinet shop. So I worked my way until I was ready to leave. and go to the next town until I come to Kiev. At that time, when I came to Kiev, it was dark, and I heard a lot of shooting, and I asked somebody what's going on there, and told me there was a pogrom between the workers and the police, the soldiers. I had two groups with me carrying. In one group I had literature, in the other group I had some ammunition, revolvers and bullets to distribute among the groups. So that policeman stopped me and told me to go back. He said, if not, it will be very bad for you. All right. I did not listen to the policeman, and I kept going. I found my address where I was coming to, and I stayed there overnight. They told me the program was still in progress, and they don't know what is going to happen, but next morning the program stopped. And we went out to look over the city. It was in a terrible shape. All the homes were broken, and there's a lot of people that were dead in there, laying dead. But there was nothing we could do. They found me a place where to work, and I went to work. We started to repair the furniture and stuff. But a week later, I received a letter from home telling me that my mother was very ill. I should come home. So immediately I left for home, and I came home 3 days later, and I found that mother was very ill, and I took a wagon and brought her up to the big city to a doctor. When I brought her to the doctor, she had pneumonia very badly. It was too late, and she finally died the same day. So we buried her 2 days later. Then I was very much upset, did not know what to do, not to find myself. We finally decided among ourselves that I should write a letter to my brother to New York, who was there already, to send me a ticket to come to America, because the revolution was being defeated by the Tsarist government and took away all the liberties, and they shut off the parliament. At that time it was called the Duma, and arrested most revolutionaries. Should I not have gone away at that time, I would probably be arrested and thrown in jail. So I waited for the ticket, and when the ticket came, I left for America. I came to United States on 1906 on Labor Day. And I had to stay over the weekend till Tuesday on the boat. So when Tuesday came, my brother came to take me off, and I landed in New York. My brother bought me an outfit, an American outfit, from toe to head. And before you know, I looked like a real American slicker. Well, I wander around the city observing the masses going to and fro from work, and I thought, what a wonderful opportunity it will be for a big speaker to stop and talk to those people and explain them that they have the all strength and might in their hands, and they can do what they want if they would only be class conscious. So I was dreaming and observing life there until I find myself a job. I went to work at carpenter work. I worked in New York for a little while. One day, some of my friends who came from the town from where I come from told me that in Newark, New Jersey, there is going to be a strike from the bakers. and they asked me if I wouldn't agree to speak at a street meeting for the striking bakers, and I told them I would. So they announced that a new labor leader, came from the old country and is going to speak for the striking bakers. So when the night came to speak, I was there. There must have been about 150 people probably to listen to me. And I went on a box and I started to talk. I started to explain the class struggle, what the workers have to go through. And I started to explain the Marxian theory. That the Marxian theory has two programs, a minimum and a maximum. The minimum program is to better the condition of the workers and try to gain a 8 hours day. And the maximum program is socialism. And I explained them what socialism would be. Before I talked for about 15 minutes, I started to hear boos around me. And I got confused a little bit, but I controlled myself and kept on speaking. And before very long, again, a rotten tomato flew in my face. And I got very much confused, and I started to cry, and I left the platform. And that was my end of the career of being a public speaker. Since then, I never spoke on any platforms or for any public gatherings. When I get up for a public gathering, in the back of my mind always comes back that incident, and I cannot speak 10 words. So that was the end of my career as a speaker. Now shut it off for a minute. Then I found myself a job in Orange, New Jersey, in a cabinet shop where they reproduce antique furniture. And that I worked there for about 8 months. And I lived there. During that time, I worked in the Socialist Party, and I'd done everything I could except speaking. After I got through with my job at Orange, New Jersey, I quit, went back to New York, stayed in New York several weeks. Then I went to Buffalo, New York. There I got myself a job in a cabinet shop again, and I immediately looked up the secretary of the Jewish Socialist Party. And I found him, and I found that they have a branch, but the branch of the Jewish Socialists hardly existed. So I took over the branch, and I began to be active, and I sent out postal cards to all the members that I took it over and called a meeting, and we began to survive that Socialist Party in Buffalo. At that time, there was a struggle between Eugene V. Debs and Daniel De Leon, the Socialist Labor Party and the Socialist Party. So we had a campaign meeting in Buffalo at that time, and Debs was running for the candidate, and I was with Eugene V. Debs on the platform. And just as a spectator, could not say anything. So it was an interesting meeting, and I remember I talked to Eugene V. Debs, and he admired me, my courage and my youth, and my knowledge of socialism. So the meeting, the debate between Daniel DeLeon and Eugene V. Debs was quite interesting, although I did not understand English very well. But still I knew that it was very good. So that meeting ended and we worked in the campaign, the presidential campaign, very hard. And at that time, Eugene V. Debs got over 1 million votes, which was very satisfactory. I again stayed on in Buffalo for some time, and then I came to Detroit. I worked in Detroit in a cabinet shop for a little while, until the year of 1910 came around. I read in the papers that there was a struggle between the merchants and manufacturers and the workers in California. And it's a very strong struggle. At that time there was IWW here, and they were very revolutionary. So I decided at that time that my place is in California, and that's where the social revolution was going to start. That's where I thought. So I quit my job and I came to California. I came to California was at Yom Kippur night. I did come to the Jewish quarters, but all the stores and the streets were dark, and I did not know where to turn. But I found myself a place to sleep, and then I came out and I asked the policeman where there is a Jewish synagogue. So the policeman pointed out where there is a synagogue. So I went to the synagogue not to pray, because I was not religious then either, but I wanted to get acquainted with some Jewish people. But there was a man at the door who was sitting collecting tickets, and I asked, I wanted to go in. He says, "Where are you going?" I says, "Well, I want to go in the shul." He says, "You got a ticket?" I says, "No, I just come off of the train." He says to me, "Get out of here, you bum." And I felt insulted, and I went out, and I guess I never visited a shul ever since. So the struggle began when I came to Los Angeles. The Times building was still smoking from the explosion. At that time there was 31 people killed in the explosion, and the building was still smoldering. So I saw what it means, the struggle. So then, pretty soon, there was a campaign for the election of mayor and council. And the Socialist Party was very strong in Los Angeles. I then joined the Socialist Party, and I also joined the Carpenters Union, and I went to work. And during the evenings, I used to go and help with the necessary work of distributing literature and building benches and tables and all those chores that had to be done. And I was very busy. I used to go to meetings almost every day, every night. All the intellectuals from all over the country, the socialists such as Stokes and Spargo and Berger from Milwaukee, they all came to help in the campaign to elect the Socialist Council. The candidate for mayor was a man by the name Job Harriman. He was a sort of a type of a Lincoln type, tall and lengthy, and he was a terrific, good speaker. Everybody felt in the city of Los Angeles that the whole council of the Socialist Party, including the mayor, would be elected. At the same time, several months before, they arrested two men by the name of McNamara brothers and threw them in jail. And immediately, Job Herman, the candidate for mayor of Los Angeles, became their counsel and defended them. And so it was a struggle in day and night. It happened so that when about 3 days before the election, that they promised immunity to the merchants and manufacturers, promised immunity to the McNamara brothers if they will confess. And they decided to confess to save their lives. So 2 days before the election, they confessed that they committed the crime. So when they confessed that they committed the crime, the whole campaign fell flat. And everybody was very blue and disappointed. But 7 councilmen and 1 woman were elected. 7 socialist councilmen, but the mayor was not elected and the rest of the council was not elected, and they remained in a very small majority. Then they sentenced the McNamara brothers for life imprisonment, and Job Herman all of a sudden disappeared. Nobody knew where he was. They couldn't find him. And he was away for about 3 months. 3 months later, he appeared again in Los Angeles with a plan to organize a socialist colony. He got about 100,000 acres of land options in the desert, and he was going to start to build a socialist colony. He began to recruit members from the unions, as the unions were strongly socialistic at that time. And they got quite a lot of money, and they also got a number of members. And so they moved out in the desert, and it was called Little Rock at that time. And they began to build, began to drill for water, they began to build socialism. After about a month, the socialist colony was in existence. I decided to join it. So I paid in some money, and I joined the socialist colony, and another month later I moved out there. And they gave me work to do, building houses, and do all sorts of things. So I stayed there for about a month. I saw the elements that were there were very much unfit to build socialism. For they were a lazy bunch, and they liked to smoke and drink and play cards and do as little work as they possibly could. I was very much disappointed and very much disgusted. I saw such an element will never build socialism. So I decided to quit the colony. So I quit and I come back to Los Angeles. So I was walking along Main Street in Los Angeles, and I was very much disheartened and disappointed in the whole situation. I stopped at a bookstore, and there was quite a number of books second-hand books laying on stands, and I began to look if I can find a book that I can buy to read. I find a little booklet, and the name was The Foundation of All Reform. That name attracted my attention. So I bought that little book for 10 cents and I took it home. I began to read that book, and then that made an entire change in my whole life since then. This book was about the reform of each person, that you've got to work till you develop yourself physically, spiritually, and mentally, and make a perfect specimen out of yourself. When this will happen, and the human race will work and develop themselves through education and knowledge, then we will have a better life in this world, and not before. So this made a terrific influence on me, and I began to follow those ideas. And I'm following those ideas up till this very day. That are influence on me. And I hope that I'll stay the way I am now. That's all, brother.
Friends and comrades, I speak here in the name of the Hollywood Jewish Culture Club, of which our comrade Reuben Most was a member for many, many years, a devoted member. We are gathered here today, can say it's a funeral and a memorial. Most of you probably know what happened. Just 4 weeks today, on the 17th of September, Reuben Most spoke to me at the front of the Wilshire Abel. And he tells me, Bacher, I'm going to Israel to see my son. And when I'll come back, I'll be to the Garfield's affair. He embraced me, I embraced him, and we telling you that we kissed each other and we said goodbye. And we said, Reuben Most, I hope to see you well. I hope you will find your son well, and you'll come back and we'll continue the work in our organizations. And that's all. Last Friday, we received the news, I think it was last Friday or Thursday, that our comrade Reuben Most passed away in Paris. The family didn't know when the body will come in. They were waiting. And to tell you, the body is not here yet, not in the States. But the family decided to have the funeral day in the memorial. And they wanted they should be take place right here in the Yablon Center. Why? Because Reuben Most was one of those who helped build this Yablon Center. And the children wanted, we'll have a speaker from the senior citizens. There will be Rose Supperstein, a daughter of Rebecca, and a son-in-law of Reuben Most, Jean Drogen. I will call now on Rose Kugler in the name of the Hollywood Jewish Culture Club. Rose Kugler.
Friends and comrades, I will say, Most would want it that way. Reuben Most was a person that makes it very hard for me, knowing him for the last 10 years in our club, that I had dealings with him, organizational and personal, and I found in him a very true and devoted and beloved person to everybody. Why do I say to everybody? Because he never showed any anger or any disapproval with whatever our club said or decided. He said, anything that is good, that serves our purpose, our organization, I'm willing to go along with it. Most, for the last 10 years that I knew him, our club had occasions, several occasions, to be at their home, to celebrate various occasions of birthdays and anniversaries and just celebrations. Reuben Most would make a celebration out of a good day. And therefore I say that he was a true friend and a true comrade to all of us. And I want to say that we're all going to miss him and remember him for many, many years. I personally also kissed Most goodbye, and he promised to come back, and he said, I must be in his house. I wasn't yet in this new home. And he said, when I'll come back, if we're going to have a welcome home, and I'm going to have all the executive, and you included, up in my house. I want to say to the family that we lost a true devoted friend and fellow amongst our ranks. And they have something to be proud of, that in a hot day like today, with so many doings, that we were able to get together a nice group of people. And the way we mourn today, that's the way Reuben Most would want it, with flowers and with little speeches. And he would say, let's talk less and do more. That was always his phrase. And we will always remember Reuben Most and our club, and I'm sure in all our midst. And we hope that his dear wife, Rebecca, will find her warm spot with us, which were his friends and also her friends, and she'll come with us and she'll find a lot of doings together with us, and that will help her go along in this world.
My Mudus, the general manager of the Freiheit in Los Angeles.
Teure Mishpoche, Kinder, Freu und andere von der Familie und ihr alle liebe versammelte Chaverim, Chavotes und Freund. Wir haben daheim versammelt, abzugeben, Covid, unser Freund, wenn wir mit ihm gekannt vor 8 Jahren, unser Mitarbeiter in Organisations, unser Sachhaber, welcher ist weg in der Ewigkeit, gestorben in einer fremden Stadt. Aber heint, gib mir ein Mob, nicht nur Covid, nur euch Anerkennung. Seien wir da in tiefen Zar und Treuer, mit gebeugener Käpp, noch ein plutzendicken Teut von Reuben Most, ein lieber Mensch, ein getreuer Vater und ein Liebergegebener zu der Bewegung, was ist ihm gewesen, lieb und teuer, für ein Sachjahr. Der Geurl hat gewollt, als ihm ein Vater soll sich verglusten, gehen sehen sein Kind, sein Sohn, wenn man schon vor 8 Jahren nicht gesehen und gefindet sich oder sich gedacht gefunden in Medinas Israel. Vernimmt dort eine berühmte Position von einem bewussten Ingenieur, wegen sei in Israel, sei anderswo. Hat sich ihm gewollt formen, und ist geformt. Und wie gewöhnlich ist passiert mit bewusstsinnigen Menschen, speziell wenn sie treten rein in den Mächeren Älter, als irgendwo hat sich vergangen wird ein Gedanke oder eine Premonition, wie man sagt es in Englisch. Wer weiß, was wird mit mir passieren auf dem Weg. Und 3 Tage, jeder ist abgefahren, hat angeklungen bei uns in dem Office in der Morgenfrei und mir gebeten, komm mal raus, hab etwas sehr wichtig dir überzugeben. Hab mich gefragt und fragen, was und wen. Raufgefahren auf dem Meuchen Berg, auf wem es heißt, mir und meine Frau und die Kinder ist rausgekommen zu gucken, kommt jeden Tag, wenn wir sind zu sich gefahren heim, weil es sein Haus ist auf dem Berg und wir gewöhnt unten. Raufgefahren heim, habe Reuben Most, was sie des Sohns, noch was wird gerufen, hat erzählt. Ich vorsehen, mein Sohn. Und wer weiß, will ich überlassen an Savoy. Und in der Savoy hat verzeichnet Geld, nicht wichtig wie viel. Wichtig ist für wem? Für die Mikuf, für die weltliche irische Kinderschule, für die Choren, den jüdischen Chor, den amerikanischen Chor, für den Musikverband, für den Nationalen Mikuf, noch Institutionen und eine größere Summe für unsere Morgenfreiheit. Ist nicht nur, ob wir wollen, nur es ist so. Wenn ein Mensch tracht in Terminen wegen Überlassung Geld für gewisse Institutionen, stellt uns fest, wie also der Mensch tracht, was also der Mensch denkt und wie schätzt dort gewisse Aktivitäten und Organisationen. Und dort hier da in der Savoy, der Mensch, was Reuben Most hat mit sich vorgestellt, ihm ist gegangen im Leben, der Kiem und Herrscher von unser jüdischen Volk und seine jüdische Kultur. Hat er durch den Mikuf, und hat er durch die Kinderschule, und hat durch die jüdische Volkslieder, wo es drücken sich Häuser in die Choren und den Musikverband. Aber noch etwas gar Wichtiges ist ihm gegangen im Leben. Hat gewollt sehen eine schöne Welt, eine Welt ohne Milchome, eine Welt ohne Rassismus und Antisemitismus, eine Welt, wo alle Menschen haben einen sonnigen Morgen, einen Unterschied von Kultur und religiösen Abstamm oder nationalen Abstamm. Das hat gewollt sehen. Und das hat sich ausgedrückt in sein Savoy durch geben eine Summe Geld für unsere Morgenfreiheit. Weil die Morgenfreiheit ist die einzige jüdische Zeitung in Amerika. Die einzige, wo es verkörperten sich hat Reuben Mostes Träumen und Verlangen und Begehren. Eigentlich hat schon das alles festgestellt, wer Reuben Most ist. Und der Pfarrer wird schon sein, richtig zuzugeben. Als Reuben Most, wenn man mir gekannt, vor etliche zendlich Jahr, ist gewesen ein progressiver Mensch und hat sich umgeehrt zu allen progressiven Organisationen da in der Stadt, gegen Beisteuerungen mit der breiten Rand. Und ist euch wichtig zu erzählen, als ist gegangen sehr stark im Leben als seine Kinder, wo sein Progressive ist ich persönlich und wie meine Frau ist eine speziell bekannt mit der Tochter Brodier, was ist gewesen eine Führung für unsere Kinder mit 12 Jahren zurück. Und allein hat in einer gewissen Zeit abgegeben ein Stück Land, was es ihm angehört, aufzuhaben ein Camp für die damaligen Kinder, wenn man gerufen Pionieren und so weiter. Aber wichtig ist, dass das, was hat ausgedrückt in der Savoy, ist nicht gekommen, Stamm in der letzten Minute oder ein Resultat von der letzten etlichen zendlich Jahr. Heint in der Früh, aber gehabt dem Covid in die Gelegenheit, zu hören von Reuben Most eigener Meul, heint in der Früh, 10 Tage bei der Tochter Brodier und dem Edim Jean Drogi. Aber Gott ist früh, so ich noch einmal zu hören von Reuben Most eigener Meul, sein ganzen Lebensweg, wo hat Gott genug Verstand, es überzugeben Apathie, gedei die Kinder und Kinder und Kindskinder sollen wissen, sein Abstamm Reuben Most, mit welcher hat gegräust. Und es gibt uns alle Männer stolz, was wir gehabt in unserer Reihen, als selten wie Reuben Most. Und was erzählt Reuben Most in Notre Dame Tate wegen seinem Lebensgang? Keinem Master ist noch kein Jahr nicht gewesen und gewesen ein Josim. Und ein paar Jahre später ist schon geworden ein Keilerdicker Josim. Und sie gewesen große Ohrigkeit. Und hat gearbeitet als Astoller. Aber das Wichtigste, was erzählt, ist sein Anteil in der Arbeit in 1905, in der Revolution von 1905. Und erstaunt ist mir klar geworden, für was Reuben Most ist gewesen der größere Freund von dem Oktober, was mir feiert über der Welt 50 Jahre und schon gegeben an einem Pony der Erde wenigstens ein Drittel von der Erde. Und erzählt dort, als in 1905 hat genommen einen großen Anteil in die damalige Geschehnissen. Und als hat euch Hunger zu einer Selbstschutzorganisation, was hat verteidigt die Jiden von Pogromen, wo der Zar und seine Mischorsim am umgerät das jüdische Volk, gedei zu verdecken dem revolutionären Aufstand in 1905. Und noch hat dort erzählt, als 1906 ist entlaufen von Russland, weil hat Meure gehabt, für die zarische Verfolgungen und ich gehe in Türme für seine gute Mainzim in 1905, gekommen in Amerika. Und dort hat weiter umgehört zu der Sozialistischen Partei und ist geworden aktiv. Und hat gebracht mit sich von dorten seine Träume für eine sozialistische Welt. Und erzählt am modernen Episode, ist gewesen aktiv in der Union, Carpenter Union. Dann gekommen seine Freund Becker, ihm gesagt, in Newark kommt vor ein Streik von der Bäcker für 8 Jahre. Und du bist das ein feiner Redner. Und sie haben gewusst, dass es übergeben mit Herz und Leben, mit einer Schomme, für die Interessen von den Arbeiter, komm, wirst du reden bei uns. Ist weg in Newark und gerät wegen 8 Jahre Arbeitstag. Und gleichzeitig hat sie erzählt, wegen dem, als wir darf haben, eine sozialistische Amerika und eine sozialistische Welt. Und wie enttäuscht ist geworden, wie die Arbeiter, was haben wir aufgenommen sehr gut wegen 8 Jahren, aber wegen Sozialismus haben sie noch damals nicht verstanden, gar nicht. Und Reuben erzählt in dem Tape, und das ist immer sehr enttäuscht, als sah runter von der Bühne, geweint, vergossen Tränen, allemal die Arbeiter haben nicht gewollt, verstehen, wo das meint Sozialismus verseh, und hat beschlossen, mehr will ich schon auf den Tribüne nicht reden. Und ist geworden, wie trägt sich aus Public Speaker. Und weiß das, als der Nächten ist gewesen sehr stark verbunden mit dem Heind. Aber die Zavue seine ist ein Resultat von sein Sein verwurzelt in der Bewegung von echten, ämmissen Humanismus, von echten und ämmissen sein Übrigen zu den Interessen von der europäischen Massen und Bechlau von den Völkern. Und das ist gewesen. Und alle Jahre da hat belangt zu der Bewegung. Und noch ein Episode und ich fertig. In der Zeit, wenn Debs ist gelaufen für Präsident von Amerika, hat sich hereingeworfen mit Leib und Leben, nicht als Redner, nur zu teilen Literatur, und hat gefühlt, dass hat eine Sache zugetragen zu dem, was Dex hat bekommen, 1.000.000 Stimmen als Präsidentkandidat in unserer Amerika. Und das ist gewesen Reuben Most, ein teurer und lieber Mensch, wenn wir uns mit ihm begegnen, freundlich, herzig und der Remes ist, als ist ein größer Verlust für die Bewegung, für die Mischpoche und Avade, für die lieber teure Haverte Rebecca. Für die lieber teure Rebecca. Und wenn irgend gewähnt, was in euch jenen Montag 3 Tage fahren abfahren, hat sich entschuldigt von mir, was ich kann Rebecca nicht sehen, weil es damit gefühlt nicht gut und so weiter und weiter. Aber Reuben Most ist gewesen ein übergegebener Chaver, Freund, und sie ist ein Wehtuch im Herzen, wenn ein Mensch starb in der Fremd, hat er sich plötzlich. Und ich will zugeben noch ein Wort. Wenn hat mir gesagt, Tomer, guck ich auf ihn, mir sagt, Reuben, Leute wie ihr seht euch, und Leute wie ihr redet, darf ihr sich nicht schreien. Nein, also das wird nicht passieren. Aber tief in sich, mir etwas durchgehen am Modner Gedanken, so ich rufen. Ich weiß, er hat letztens gehabt, ein bisschen Herzkrankheit. Hat er so durchgehört mit dem Doktor. Sogt er, warte. Der Doktor hat mir gegeben, der Leute nicht zu fahren. Aber das ist es. Keiner weiß nicht, welcher Schatten steht hinter ihm. Aber eins ist sicher, wie das Yiddish Volkswörtel sagt. Du lebst mit Cheshben, starbst du mit Wide. Und das ist der größere Ansag. Ist gelebt mit Cheshben und gestorben mit der Zavoe, wo es verherrlicht ihm und beweist, wo es für eine Person, Persönlichkeit oder Chaver oder Freund, wie ihr wollt sagen, Reuben Most hat sich vorgestellt. Wird uns nicht schwer, wird uns als Sachwährung und heint, da wenn wir uns versammelt. Und sendig für sich alle Versammelte, beweist, wie viel Freund hat gehabt. Kovet, ein ehrlichen Unweg. Kovet, Chaver Reuben Most.
I'll have to excuse myself for opening. I should ask all the people to rise and the next speaker will be Nathan Garfield, the president of the Hallelujah of the Los Angeles Jewish Culture Clubs. Comrade Garfield.
My dear friend Rebecca, and all the friends that are assembled here to memorialize the loss of a great friend, a very fine personality, a man with whom it was always good to get together, a man with whom it was easy to make friends. And at a time like this, it is always painful for anyone who has known Reuben Most to appear here to speak, to tell about his personality and the kind of a person he was and his contributions to the many efforts and the many objectives in the life of Reuben Most and the objectives, all the principles that he embraced and worked for and supported. And yet it's necessary that at a time like this, we remember and remind ourselves of the kind of a personality that we're mourning today. I have known Reuben Most for about 20 years. And we were never really intimate in the sense that we visited each other's home, but we were very close and intimate in the general activities of the progressive movement, of the movement in behalf of the oppressed and the persecuted, in the movement in behalf of all those who are struggling for a greater share of life, for a greater share of liberty for all those who are deprived of it. Because this was the kind of a person that Reuben Most was, and this is what he devoted his life to. I have talked with many people who have known Reuben Most since he was a very young boy. We have here the daughter in whose father was the Rebbe or the teacher of Reuben Most when he was a very young boy. And she told me that he was a rebel even when he went to Cheder. He was a rebel in his very early youth, and he remained a rebel all his life, rebelling against injustice, against oppression, against persecution, against all that is evil, and always contributed his share to all that can help that which is good or leads into the direction that will eventually bring about a better life, better conditions. Reuben Most, I think someone with a great deal of talent could write a most interesting book about the life of Reuben Most. Because he was a dreamer, and he was a realist at the same time. There was realism and dream combined, which made his life so interesting. It seemed to me, knowing of all the things that I have been told about Most and all the things that he has told me in the many conversations that we've had, and we've had many, it seems to me that somehow if Reuben Most were a great painter, he probably would have found another color which was heretofore yet not discovered to paint a new hope for mankind. This is the type of a character that Reuben Most was. Reuben came to this country many years ago, probably about the same time that I came to this country, and maybe earlier. And that comprises approximately around 60 years or more. And 60 years ago, this country needed men like Reuben Most more than anything in the world. Because this was a hard country. This was a tough country. This was a tough and hard life for anyone who came here in 1905, 4, 3, 6, 7, 8. There were no jobs to be had, and jobs didn't pay, and hours were long, and people worked and slept in the factory where they worked. This was the history. And at that time it was needed men who could dream and turn their dreams into reality, and turn that reality into a struggle to help those to reduce the hours of labor, to increase the wages, to make life more bearable, more comfortable. And it's really hard today when we live in this affluent society, as we do, where people can't understand when someone worked for $3, $4, $5 a week, 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day, It sounds strange, but this is what happened. And this country needed men like Reuben Most and thousands of others of all different nationalities and of all different breeds from every country in the world who came here and populated our country and made it great and big and strong and fought for the kind of a life that we've been able to reach today, and working few hours and riding in cars. And people paid with their blood and with their lives on the picket line to achieve this. This was achieved because there were men of the character with the strength and will and desire, as was our friend Reuben Most. Reuben Most was a cultured person, a highly cultured person. Reuben Most dwelled deep into the meaning of culture. He just didn't read a book. He lived it. Reuben Most would talk about the great writers and the books that he's read with a sense of feeling that he lived through a great moment or a great hour, a great day or a great month when he was immersed into the deep thoughts of the great writer that presented to him great ideas for mankind, for mankind's future, for the beautiful life that is to come. This is what inspired others in the presence of men like Reuben Most, and created this great mass of people in the millions and millions who helped and did what Joe Hill said when he was about to die. He said, "Don't mourn for America. Organize." And Reuben Most and the millions of others didn't mourn for America, because this is a great and beautiful country and a rich country, and has all of the things bestowed upon it by nature in vast riches and vast forms. And it's the people that have got to make the country great, and have made it great, and have got to make it greater. And the legacy that Reuben Most has left will go on through his friends and through his family and through his children and through his grandchildren and millions of others who are of the same mind. And a time will come when there will be no persecution of anyone, when there will be no discrimination against anybody, when no one will live on somebody else's toil, when everyone will be free and the world will be free and there will be peace in the world. And people will think back of all the millions of people who've helped to bring it about. And whether they will know the name of Reuben Most or not does not matter. The important thing is that they will remember the millions that participated and contributed and did and fought and helped to bring it about. And in their thoughts, knowingly or unknowingly, will be the name painted in beautiful colors of men like Reuben Most and his kind. And so we mourn his loss, and we will remember him. And we say to the family, you have reasons to be proud of being the offsprings of a man like Most, and to have been his friends, and to have had the pleasure of enjoying his company, and to hear his wisdom and knowledge, and to enjoy the pleasantries that were so easily existent in his presence. And we shall remember him, and you will, and the world will, in the terms that I have just expressed. And when we get together, his memory will linger on with us for many, many years, because he left his mark with us. And may his name forever be inscribed in the minds and hearts of all the people who contribute to a better life for the world, for society, for everywhere and every person in the world, and for peace and friendship of all nations. And may it ever be so.
There's a great movement in Los Angeles of senior citizens, but they are all speaking English. They conduct their work in English. we found necessary, the progressive movement found necessary to organize the senior citizens in Yiddish. And went to the first meeting, the Most found it necessary to join this group that conducts its work in fighting for better conditions of the elderly people in the United States. That happened in 1966 in March. And ever since, both Mr. and Mrs. Most were with us in our organization. He was a progressive person. He had a warm heart and an open hand. He supported all our campaigns, all our progressive movement with substantial sums of money. He donated big sums for Yad Hana, for Reuben Brining Clinic, for the Jewish progressive schools, for the City of Hope, for the Rosita Home for the elderly people, and many, many other places. As was mentioned before, Bella Dvorin said to me, that was the daughter of his teacher of his childhood, when he was a child, that he did something original that was at present already. We know that when the Negroes fight for their integration, and when the youth is fighting in the colleges for a world of peace, they have sit-ins. He had a sit-in on a homestead to gain a piece of ground for himself in a very romantic and an original way. He set out on that piece of ground as a hermit for 3 years, and he gained his place under the sun here in the United States. He succeeded here in the United States to form a warm atmosphere around him with quite a few circles of friends, and we all loved him and esteemed him. He recently celebrated his 82nd birthday at the Senior Citizens, and as sick as he was, he seldom missed a meeting of our organization. Despite his sickness, he was always on the go. Many of his friends begged him not to go to Europe, but he was full of willingness and full of pep, and he wanted to go to see for his last time, as you heard before. We express our deepest sympathy to his wife, Rebecca, and to his whole family. We will remember friend Reuben Most for his good deeds. We will miss him very much. We wish you find your condolence in following and continuing in his footsteps for his aspirations for a world of peace and progress.
Because he loved all of you, and I know all of you loved him very dearly. He was a wonderful person. And I thought you'd like to know the reason we wanted these flowers here today was because he always worked with the earth, and he loved beauty, and he loved things to grow. He wanted life to grow. He wanted the world to grow. He wanted development, and this is symbolic of how he was. He always had a garden, and his gardens were always beautiful. He was a wonderful, beautiful human being. He left a wonderful, beautiful family. He left wonderful, beautiful friends. I'm very grateful that Reuben came into my life. I've known him about 18 years. My daughter was a baby when I first met him, and I loved him immediately. I love every one of his children, and they love me. And he asked me that no matter whatever happened in his life, that his friends and his beloved ones would belong to me, and that I would belong to them. And I intend to keep that promise to him. I put him on the plane with my mother when he was going to Israel, and I've never seen Reuben cry. He kind of reminded me of Buncha Schwab. He asked nothing back for anything that he ever gave. I've never heard him ask anybody to do anything for him, ever. The littlest things seemed to satisfy him. This is the way I know him. When he came to my home for dinner, it was the greatest dinner he ever ate in his life. And when I came to his home for dinner, it was never enough, he felt. And he was like this about everything. He wanted nothing for himself. Nothing. I'm very touched by all the tributes that everyone has paid him. And I'm very honored that I've known him and that he brought my mother such happiness and such a sense of fulfillment.
Before I introduce the last speaker, in the name of the Hollywood Jewish Culture Club, we pledge to the family that we will continue to work for that what was dear to Reuben Most. And I want to say to the grandchildren of Reuben Most, when you will grow up and you will live in a better world without discrimination, without wars, you should always have it in remember that your grandfather, Reuben Most, was one of those millions who helped bring that better world for you. The next and the last speaker will be the son-in-law of Reuben Most, Gene Drogan.
On behalf of the family, I want to express our gratitude to all the relatives and friends who have come here today, and also to those who could not be here, for your expressions of sympathy. This expression on all your parts has given much support and strength to the family to bear this loss. Reuben was a man who left his mark on our lives, and he will be greatly missed. As the previous speakers have told you about Reuben's background, of his involvement in social events, social movements, dedication to his socialist beliefs, I would like to say a few words about his family and his personal life. Reuben came to Los Angeles in 1910 and settled up on a hill bordering Elysian Park, where he spent most of his life. In 1914, he married his first wife, Blanche. Together they raised 6 children: Rodea, DeForest, Jack, Howard, Bert, and Sonia. From these children, he received 12 grandchildren. In later years, he married Rebecca. Her daughters, Rose, Helen, Florence, and their children also became part of his family. Although Reuben never had a formal education, he was very well read in his search for knowledge. He was familiar with all the great classic writers of Yiddish literature, politics, and economics. Beyond this, he was determined that all his children have the opportunity for a full education. As evidence of this, from his 6 children, 3 are teachers, 1's a lawyer, 1's an engineer, and 1 follows in his footsteps as a carpenter. From his early youth, Reuben developed the skill to build with his hands. At the age of 13, he became an apprentice carpenter and cabinet maker in Poland. When he came to this country, he continued to earn his livelihood in this trade. In Los Angeles, there are many houses standing today as a permanent tribute to his productive labor. In Echo Park area alone, there are at least 25 homes which he built and are still standing. In the Sunland, Tahunga area, there are as many more to remind us of the mark he left on this community. His desire to build and create extended also to his love of nature and his desire to cultivate the soil and make things grow. In 1926, he purchased a large ranch near Redlands. Here, he hoped to merge all his ideals into one project. He wanted to develop an apple orchard, and at the same time to provide the land for a camp for young pioneer children to learn the principles of socialism. Even though this did not succeed for very long, he never gave up his love of the soil. Wherever he lived in later years, in Tahunga and then back up on the hill, he always planted a garden. Even though in the last year of his life, he was stricken by a heart attack, this garden was so important to him that he would not give it up. Side by side with his wife Rebecca, they would walk daily through the beautiful Elysian Park. When the park was threatened with destruction by a proposed convention center, parking lots, and roads, he and Rebecca became involved in the campaign to save Elysian Park. One particular incident stands out very strongly. The Committee to Preserve Elysian Park arranged for a clean-out of litter, beer cans, trash on a Saturday morning. Reuben and Rebecca were there bright and early. Small sacks to collect the litter were being distributed to the people. When Reuben saw how small the sacks were, he went home and got a large army duffel bag to make his collection with. He worked that whole morning and picked up more beer cans and trash than anyone else there. He wanted to keep the park clean and beautiful for everyone. The family and friends, above all, the man himself, strong, vigorous, standing always for what he believed to be the best for all people. Item to stay.
Mrs. Bordy, will have to. It's the daughter of Reuben Most.
It's wonderful to see all the family and friends here, and we thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for coming and paying this tribute to my father. And now, as he would have wished it, we invite all of you to remain with us and partake of refreshments and talk about him and remember him some more. Thank you.
In the name of the Hollywood Jewish Culture Club, we thank all of you for coming here, and I hope the next time we'll meet in a better and a more joyous occasion. Thank you. But we all remain here as Reuben's daughter asked you to do.